Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, wherever you are right now. I'm Philip Hutcheson, and you're with Word with the Herd once again. I used to do a radio show back in the late 90s called Sunrise Sports, and that was before the Titans, and that was before the Predators, and any of the MLS or any of that. And I'm always worried when I do this, I'm going to roll into saying, welcome to Sunrise Sports, because I did that for about 2 years every morning at 6 a.m. But it's Word with the Herd. Glad to have you here, and I hope you're having a super week this week. We have a great guest on today, Coach Jamie Ade from our Lipscomb women's tennis team. I'm going to get into her story and talk a little bit about the season, talk about recruiting, talk about just some other things related to the game of tennis. But I want to give you just a few housekeeping items here real quick. If you wanted to watch this or listen to it, you got to us either through YouTube or Spotify. And if you're on one of them, you can go to the other one. You can forward this on to your friends and let them hear as well. If you have a question or a suggestion for us, the best way to reach us is either to direct message us at Lipscomb Bisons on every social media account. That's our main account, at Lipscomb Bisons, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Or you can email us at athletics@lipscomb.edu. And when you do that, we'll get your suggestions, your feedback, that kind of thing, and hopefully make this better. We've tried to talk with every one of our coaches. We've got about a month left after Coach Ade here to get to the rest of our coaches, and then we'll be rolling on into the next season. So this has been a way for us to kind of bridge the gap between what we missed in the spring, catch up a little bit, learn a little bit, that sort of thing. And so we're really happy to have Coach Jamie Ade with us. One final thing, if you want to follow us on every day, whether it's Lipscomb women's tennis or any other sport, it's lipscombsports.com. That's our website. So I want to make sure and let you know that. So Jamie, I am in my dining room, which has been my office for the past 3 months. I've got 4 college students here at my house with me, along with my wife. And so we have all just kind of taken over different parts of the house, and this has become my little office here for a while. Hopefully get back to Lipscomb's office here soon. Yeah. It appears you're maybe at your house or somebody's house. Tell us where you are right now.
I'm at my house. I've kind of taken over the downstairs during the day. And
okay.
Matt, my husband, he has his office upstairs. So we kind of have our spaces as well in the house, but okay. Not as many people as you running around.
Okay, so I've got a little dog. She's about 13 years old. She's very needy sometimes. She seems to know when I'm on these kind of calls, because she'll come in here and need to, go do something or get something to eat or whatever. What about you? Any sort of animals you have to contend with at the house, or y'all animal free?
Oh no, we have a 1-year-old puppy.
Oh boy.
Who is being babysat upstairs right now because she barks whenever I'm on Zoom calls, and we have 2 cats. So it's
oh wow.
Honestly, it's been nice having them during the quarantine though. So it's been fun. She's a little attached at this point.
Yeah, I understand. Well, there's a lot of grace at this time with everybody working. I'm sure most of the people listening have had the same experience where they've seen children running across the screen, or they've heard animals, or the neighbor. We were doing this show one time. We had across the street, but I promise it sounded like it was right outside the window, a guy on a weed eater that had to be turned up to 11, Spinal Tap reference there. But anyways, it was turned up as loud as it possibly could be turned up. And so you're at your house, you're trying to kind of just make things go. Now, one question I have, I know at one time you were working on your golf game, but I don't know, are you still working on your golf game, or have you had to hang that up for a while?
The golf game is a work in progress. It's hitting the ball that is still is much harder than hitting the moving tennis ball that I'm used to, is what I have found out. But my husband's really into golf, so he's out there quite a bit. So I attempt.
What's the best part of your game, your golf game? What's the best part, and what do you got to work on the most?
I need to work on everything.
Oh, okay. Well.
My best part, maybe driving. I can drive pretty decent.
All right.
But it all needs work. So.
Well, as they say,
but it's nice to get on.
Yeah, as they say, drive for show, putt for dough. So maybe work on that part of your game as well. People who are familiar with Lipscomb tennis probably know a bit about you already. You've been around Lipscomb for a while, but not everybody
Mhm.
knows that's listening to this. We have a lot of people who are Lipscomb tennis fans, but also just Lipscomb
Yeah.
athletic fans, or people who just like sports and just want to kind of get a fix and learn more about our
Mhm.
program. And that's a big reason why we've done this. So, give people a little bit of your background. I mean, how did you get into the game of tennis? Did you play other things, or what kind of attracted you to that? Talk about a
Mhm.
little bit as a player, and then we'll get into the coaching part. But I mean, just personally, how did you get into the game?
I think I got into it by accident. I had a lot of energy as a child, which is probably not surprising. I'm rambunctious now too, but my mom, I was like, "Ooh, I want to do that," and I was 6 years old, and she's like, "You are so there." And
Yeah,
so
right.
I picked it up at a young age and just stuck with it. But I did a lot. I played basketball. I ran cross country. I did a lot until about ninth grade. Then I really started focusing on the tennis. But
Did you start focusing because that just became kind of your sole interest, or was there a sense of like, hey, maybe if I want to try to keep doing this, I'm going to have to devote more time to it, or just how did you kind of decide to kind of hone in a little bit there?
it was definitely the time. When I was playing, all the tournaments were on the weekend, and it was pretty much year round. And so there just kind of came a time whether you were all in this and this is what you wanted to do, or not. So obviously I chose to be all in. Really enjoyed it, and so yeah, we're on ninth grade.
Was there a specific time where you thought, hey, I want to play college tennis, or I want to, play pro tennis, or did it just kind of evolve like, hey, you're playing, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, maybe I have a chance to do this? How did that go?
I played out at Whitworth, which is ironically where the team practices now. And there's this girl there that played at Vanderbilt at the time, Kate Burgess.
Hmm.
And I was young. Had to be 9, 10 years old. And she was like, "Hey, if you ever want a hitting partner, just let me know." And to me at the time, that just meant the world to me.
Yeah,
And so just that impact of, you know, man, maybe I am okay if
right.
she wants to hit with me. But it goes to say about the impact that our athletes, tennis, golf, basketball, have on young people. I would say that was a very probably small part to her day, but was a really big piece to me.
Interesting. Yeah,
So,
yeah. Huh. Well,
but
that's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah, to see the impact that she had, and like you said, I don't think sometimes our athletes realize just the little,
Mhm.
just a little moment there that probably I imagine if you asked her today, I'm not sure if she would remember the first time she talked to you, but you
Probably
remember
not.
the first time.
She's probably
Uh,
like, "Who's Jamie Aid?"
well, so tell me about your game. I mean, you kind of when you played, there were I would say more probably baseliners than people at the net,
Yeah.
and so I don't know if you were a baseliner or did you kind of get to the net, or just describe your game a little bit.
I really liked the net, which was a little unorthodox back in the day. I would say I had a real big passion for doubles. I've
Okay.
loved doubles. I thought there was a lot more strategy in it, and I really took to doubles, especially in college. But definitely the baseline grinding back in the day, everybody was little like me. It wasn't as much of a power game
Hmm.
as it is now. So you definitely saw those longer matches and 10 to 15 ball rallies more so than we do today.
How come why do you think that it's more of a power game today? I mean, do you think it's just that the women are just kind of bigger, faster, stronger? Do you think it's the equipment? Do you think it's people that maybe used to play other sports, where maybe you're getting athletes that used to play other sports are now playing tennis? Or why do you think has kind of trended towards a more power game at this point?
hmm when you look at the whole sport and you look at how we're trained now from even elementary school, it's so different than when I was in school and you just kind of did everything. It's these kids are in weight training class in middle school, and they're
Hmm.
doing these things to be explosive. And so it's really been kind of neat to see tennis evolve. I would say it's pretty similar to volleyball in terms of the explosive part of it.
Hmm.
And so, it's a 5 points and it's done. You're looking to execute balls instead of out rallying. And so it's, I think it has to do with how we train young people now. How are we teaching the game? How are we training athletes? So there's so many things that are going into it. And I don't think it's just tennis. I think it's, a lot of sports we're seeing a change here and there.
So my family really likes tennis. My sister actually played for Lipscomb women's tennis team as well, Holly Hutcheson Dilk. So at one time, there's a shout out to my sister. So she played there, and then my family has played a lot of tennis over the years. I have different relatives that have played a lot, and I like to play the game too, actually. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit in depth for just 1 second on this question here. And everybody who's not really into tennis can tune out, but don't leave the show. Don't leave just yet. But so how much on the training? I'm really interested in like low compression balls with young kids. And I wonder how much that's helped them develop more power in their swing. I mean, I can remember when I used to play, they didn't used to have rackets that were sized for children. They were big rackets. And then you had just regular tennis balls. And quite frankly, when you're like 7, you could hardly handle the racket. And then, the ball would just go flying everywhere. And it was just really hard to develop any kind of real strokes. And I've thought about it the way I do about basketball, where I urge parents, if they have young children, I'm like, give them a smaller ball and lower the goal. Don't start out with a 10-foot goal and a big basketball, or they're just going to develop bad habits. Is there some things about the equipment, like the lower compression balls or the rackets, kind of size for kids, that you think have then helped them develop their skills quicker in the game of tennis?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's just the racket. You used to see where a racket was the size of the kid that was going to a 4-year-old clinic. And it's,
right.
I think it makes the sport so much more enjoyable, where a 5-year-old can rally a ball 3 times. And the points that they're constructing within a match, they're actually constructing points. And so it's really neat to see. And I think it's one of the best decisions that that tennis has made. And, every age group plays with a different ball until you're 12 years old, and you have different size rackets. It's just from an injury standpoint, and shoulders, elbows, just these young kids getting injured. I think it's helped so much with that. But it's making the game better. It's making the game stronger. You're developing smarter players. It's way past let's just go out rally somebody. It's point structure. And for me, that's a lot more fun to coach than, hey, let's just go out there and out rally somebody.
Yeah. So at some point, I'll go back to your career now. At some point you were playing and then you end up coaching. Was there a specific time that you just thought, like, I want to coach? Or did it just kind of evolve after your college career was over?
I never thought that I would be doing this, and I've told recruits this as well. This is not something I thought I would be doing in college at all. I was on a pre-med track and actually received an internship at a local high school here called Ensworth. And was like, this whole non-studying thing for a year is kind of nice. And then it, 1 year kind of turned into multiple years, and really had a passion for coaching girls. And hey, it's just not all about tennis. Tennis is a big piece, or whatever sport you may play. It's such a big piece of us. But, we can have fun. This can be enjoyable. You can have balance. I wish I had a little bit more balance when I played, and it wasn't just all tennis. And then you get out of college and you're like, what am I going to do with my life? But I fell into it and I love it. And I think I don't know if I would be effective at it at another place. It's neat to be able to build something that invested in you. You feel more of an attachment, and for me, I feel more of an ownership to that. So I never thought I would be doing this, and it just goes to show, doors open and things happen, and that are, meant to happen, and opportunities cross your paths. And and it's been one of the neatest experiences of my life,
Yeah. Yeah. And here you are. I guess you started about 10 years ago. If I
Hmm.
was trying to think back, but I mean,
Yeah.
as an assistant, I suppose, but it
Hmm.
was about 10 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. About 10 years, a little over 10 years ago, I think. So,
So what, you're 10 years into it now, and we'll get into some other more, I guess, some of the nuts and bolts of the season and recruiting and all of that. But it's kind of a natural question, I guess, at this point. So, do you have any advice that if you could somehow go back in a time machine and talk to yourself 10 years ago and say, hey, here's what I've learned now. Let me go ahead and just teach you this and save you the trouble. Is there anything
mm,
like that?
I think always adapting to change, even though I've done this for 10 years and I was on the younger side when I started, every team's been different that I've had. Every player's different every year, not one player's the same as the next player, and just adapting to change and adapting to what works for this group. Your way of doing things isn't going to be effective with every single team that you have. And so I think just being able to figure out, put more time into figuring out, like, hey, what's going to make this group work? What's going to make this person feel comfortable? What's going to, because my girls, they come from everywhere, and their walks of life are so different than the normal student, just being international for the most part, and coming from some pretty some backgrounds that are hard,
Hmm.
and just investing in them as students here, so.
Huh. Well, so I want to talk about that in a minute because I think that's one of the interesting pieces of the sport in general. Certainly at Lipscomb, not just at Lipscomb, but other
Mhm.
places too, is the international flavor of it. But I want to talk a little bit more about this, thinking about how to coach year by year. You mentioned you coached at Innsworth. If I'm not mistaken, you coached guys and girls at Innsworth. Is that correct?
I did. I did.
So, and then you've been involved in the Nashville tennis scene more broadly. Some people don't know, but you're also the director of our Lipscomb Racquet Club. So, we actually have, as a part of Lipscomb University's tennis center, we have a racket club that does
Mhm.
when times are normal, that it does
Mhm.
lessons. And are we back to doing lessons or not yet?
We started this morning. Our courts are at half capacity with
Okay.
USTA League up there as I
Okay.
sit and talk to you. So,
Okay. So we're recording on Wednesday the 10th. So in case people are
yes.
wondering what this morning is, well, that's fantastic. Okay. So we're doing that. We have some Nalta leagues, which is like a
Mhm.
women's tennis league, and they play out of our facility. We used to have MTTL. I don't know if we still have that. The men's
We
league
do.
playing out of
Mhm.
there. So they're playing there too. You're the director of that. So what the point I'm making is you've coached, taught, worked with men and women both in
Mhm.
coaching and teaching capacity. What differences have you seen from a coaching perspective beyond maybe some of the obvious sometimes physical differences? What have been the other differences that you've noticed in terms of coaching?
Um, with girls, in my experience, earning their trust, and if you're going to tell them what to do in a match, they need to trust you. Boys, if you tell them something, they just kind of say, all right, so girls are a little, I would say there's lower confidence going into a match sometimes, and trying to um, build that up. Um, but girls, to me, the girls I've coached, they want to please, they want to do well, they want a relationship.
Hmm.
Um, but it's been fun coaching girls. But obviously, since I am a girl,
Yeah.
I kind of know what they're getting at. But the boys in high school, it was fun. We had some really good players at that time. Our top three players went on to play college tennis at Division I levels, and so that was fun, helping them through that college process and seeing them go on to do that. And so I've enjoyed both, and just, really being able to reach out in different aspects of tennis and for the passion of it. I've had my hands in a lot of it. This is my favorite piece to it. It's the college end, but just helping to create that passion.
Yeah, yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about, I want to come back to talking about that a little bit. I guess one more question there, real quick, and then we'll move on to the season a little bit and talking about the team. But, is there, with women's tennis or men's tennis for that matter, golf, I guess is kind of maybe similar. Track and field could feel this way. It feels like an individual sport, and in a lot of ways it is. I mean, you're just out there. It's just you versus your opponent, or maybe if you're playing doubles, there's three others out there. Have you found? And I don't know your answer, so I may be dangerous, but have you found that the team dynamic matters a lot with the performance of the individuals kind of match to match, or is it just more important for kind of everybody get along with training and all of that? I mean, how much does the team dynamic matter when it comes to the matches themselves, or maybe it doesn't matter? I guess that's what I'm asking.
It is the biggest, I would say it's the biggest piece to the puzzle. And it's the biggest emphasis that I put on the team as a coach, because you're getting these girls that are, they're the best at what they do from wherever they're from, and they've just been playing for me. I just do it for me. And now you're put in an environment where hopefully that pressure of me gets taken away, and there's a we, and there's this team and this support, and I think there's some weight that can fall off the shoulder where I just have to go out there and play my best. I might lose, I might win, but having that team dynamic and that family atmosphere for our program is the thing that we put the most emphasis on. And when you look back at different seasons, my more successful seasons, the girls have been closer.
Okay.
So I think it's a big piece.
Is there anything that you, by this point, have figured out, like, hey, here's some things I do to help develop that? Or again, you said earlier, it's kind of sometimes year by year. Is it just you have to kind of as quickly as you can identify the buttons to push?
I think it's just time off the court, honestly. Luckily, we have the facility that we have, and we have the Racquet club up there. And so the girls and the guys will come up there and study during the day. And there's a lot of interaction. On the road, those team meals, they're pretty relaxed and fun. And just allowing everybody to see different sides of us other than just me as a coach or the girl as a player, and just who we are. And so I think, when we go on the road, being intentional about, going to dinner as a team and sitting down as a team, doing activities as a group, has been really important for the building of the program.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. I want to come back. I'm going to ask you later a little bit more about the culture part of this, but let's talk about the season really quickly. We've had every spring sport had that moment where they were kind of rocking along, and then all of a sudden it was bingo, season's over. March 12th was pretty much the day that happened. March 12th, 13th, right in there. Where were you? What was the team's reaction? Can you kind of remember the moment there?
Well, I saw you at Florida Gulf Coast. It was that weekend. And I remember getting on the plane, and there's a few people with the mask on. I'm like, this is a little off. And then flying home, there's a lot more people with a mask on. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And so we got in Saturday night. We had a practice on Sunday, which ended up being our last practice. And it was a beautiful day outside, and a really good practice that day. And I'm so thankful for that day, because Monday it rained. And then Wednesday, the season was called off. So it happened really fast. We had one senior this year, and that's hard. Some of the other teams, like our men's team, for instance, having 4, which was the position that we were in last year. That's just devastating. So it was a lot of uneasiness about, can I go home? Can I not go home? Is it safe to go to my country? Is it not?
Well, share with our audience that's listening or watching, if you could kind of just think a little bit. I mean, we've got several from one place, but I mean, just kind of share with them where they're trying to get back to. Of course, we've got one from Chattanooga. That wasn't too difficult, but besides Chattanooga, I guess.
We had Eleanor that went back to England, and that was when England was going up on the ups with the cases, so that was very nerve-wracking. Denise was in Austria, so she made it back.
Denise was our senior, by the way.
Yes, Denise was our senior. And our 3 Ukrainians have stayed here because they can't get back. And Emma from Poland, she's also here. Slovenia went back, and so it was just, there was this sense of uneasiness with the girls, just this like this moment, this, I want to get back to my family. I want to, what do I do here?
So we have very few people living on campus right now. Now, the good news is Lipscomb's planning to have school start back as normal in August, and planning to have all the students come back. Obviously, there'll be some adjustments to be made in the short term, but that's the goal. And so most of our students, though, are at home this summer. Not very many at all are here, but several of them are athletes who couldn't get back home. As you mentioned already, we have a few of them on the women's tennis team. So what's life been like for them right now? Pretty boring, I'm sure, actually. But maybe what's been the biggest challenges, or how they tried to navigate?
I think the biggest challenge is just being away from home, in a time like this, just being away from your family. All of our girls are so close to their families, and luckily we have technology like this where they can have that face-to-face interaction. But it's been, I think, the best it could be. Lipscomb's done a great job about taking care of the girls that are here and making them, checking in on them and all of that. Lisa is helping out with the opening of the Racquet Club right now and worked the tennis desk this morning. So getting her plugged in, but there's been a lot of support around the girls. And so it's been, the best it can be.
I guess people don't think about, but most of our international students obviously don't come over here with cars. And so even things like getting to the grocery store can be a bit of a challenge.
Yes, absolutely. Lisa has gone shopping with me a couple of times. But she has a bike that all the athletes evidently have been issued a little bike. And so she'll bike from campus to Kroger, and she's been pretty self-sufficient. So that's the one good thing about where we're located. You can walk places.
Our team will be in the best shape it's ever been in.
I know, right? Everybody wants to play tennis too. Everybody's like, when can we get on the tennis courts?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so you look at the season, it paused midstream. You have to think about, okay, well, that's what it is. So now we're going to move towards next year. Is there any takeaway from this season that you think will carry over into next year in terms of observations or attitudes? Or is it, again, maybe just, hey, we'll have to it's a new season, we'll just have to start over again?
Last year, we graduated as 4 seniors. And so you had this really mature team that you knew really well. They knew you really well. And this year we had a really young team, and it was going back to teaching, what are we about? And, why are we playing this and doing that? And I think at the end of it all, it really helped bond the girls together. I think it gave a perspective, on what's important. Tennis is not the end all be all. And so I think it gave a very immature group, just because of age, hopefully a very mature outlook moving into next year.
Mm-hmm.
And they've all been really communicative over the last couple of months with each other, which has been great, and with me. So it's been great to hear from them and what they're doing. But I think it made them kind of take that pause. And so I hope when they do come back, they just want to practice. They're just excited to practice. And we all get in those moments, even as coaches, where it's like 6 a.m. and you're like, I don't want to do this today. I don't feel energized today. And now you're in a position where you're like, I cannot wait to get back. Let's just practice.
Right.
And so I think it helps give that love for the game back to everybody, coaching staff included. Yeah. So I think still a very young team, having this group next year, they'll still be considered young. I think there will be a maturity with that young team that we wouldn't have seen if this didn't happen.
That makes total sense. I want to talk for a second because I've had several questions from people over time. And again, if you ever have a question for any of our guests, be sure to just email us at athletics@lipscomb.edu or to direct message us at Lipscomb Bisons on any of the social media. So there's my little plug. But I've had a few questions about recruiting. I think people are always fascinated, no matter what the sport is, they want to know about recruiting and how each program goes about it, how they go about finding the talent, so to speak, how they go about evaluating it, how they actually get them to campus. And I think maybe for tennis, there's even more interest because you recognize clearly, as you said, wow, you've got a team that has players from England and from Slovenia and from Austria and from Poland and from the Ukraine and from the United States. And every year that changes. But so I kind of want to hit those different areas. And then I want to talk a little bit about just why do you think we see more international players in tennis than some of the other sports? Certainly there are other sports that are equally popular around the world or have a lot of people playing, but you seem to see a lot more in tennis. But let's talk first on the recruiting side about finding the players. I mean, how do you go about? I can promise people if they're wondering, you do not have diamond double elite status on every airline flying all over the world all the time. So how do you go about finding these players?
Well, we haven't flown over the world at all, which is really interesting in all this. And luckily, like I said, with this kind of technology, it helps a lot. But finding good tennis players is not hard. Finding that player that's going to be a really good fit for what we're doing, that's really challenging. Players that want to come here just to play tennis, this is not the place. And I'm very upfront with them about that and the recruiting process. Really finding those common threads. No matter where you're from or what your background is, I think there can be some common threads. And with our girls, like I said, they're all super close to their family. They're all very academically driven. And they see this bigger picture. They're coming here to better themselves and to have a career at the end of the day. And I would say the majority of them stay here, not only here in the States, but here in Nashville. And so really being intentional about who is this girl and being as open and transparent as possible about us as a university, us as the athletic department. I take them around. You've seen me walk around campus with my phone, and I take them on a virtual tour. I want them to see it for what it is and know what they're coming to. And I love it when the girls tell me, hey, coach, this is so much better than the tour in person. I'm like, great. We did our job. But just really being intentional about what our heart is as a program, first and foremost, before the level of tennis. So that's really how we recruit. And so it's a lot of background questions and a lot of, where do you see yourself in a couple years? Why do you want to come to the States to play tennis? And so just really putting a lot of time in it and doing the best we can to find that fit that's going to be an asset to the university.
At this point, and I don't know the answer to this, so it's always dangerous to ask questions you don't know the answer to. But at this point, have you developed any, without, you don't have to name names, but just connections to people or areas or programs or leagues or whatever that somehow now has made that job a little easier? Or are you pretty well starting from ground zero every time you start talking to somebody?
I think the thing that's developed is I know somebody that knows somebody. Vika knew of Kate Popova when Kate came here, and Kate Popova knows another player that's coming here next year. So it's just you have resources to say, hey, do you know so and so? And so that's been helpful. But in terms of, having just a system that's flawless and you just go, absolutely not. Definitely from up. And everything changes, family situations change. Things happen where you think you have a player and then you don't. And so just kind of being able to adapt on the recruiting end. But, I'm a big believer, and things happen for a reason, and people cross paths for a reason. When you look at some of our girls and what they've done, you just think if they didn't come to Lipscomb, they wouldn't be doing this right now. This is really cool what they're doing. And so just kind of not rushing things and pulling that quick trigger.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed visiting with a lot of our athletes, and certainly some of our women's tennis have been some of my favorite to visit with, just because, as you said, I mean, some of them, their life, their experiences, as simple things as like their favorite food to eat, or things as big as the political system or economic environment they live in. They're all really have a lot to share and to offer, which I think is really cool. It's been really enjoyable to get to know them. And there have been so many of them that you can tell are very serious about the academic part of it and about the life after tennis part of it, which is interesting to me because every one of them had to be very serious about tennis to get to the point they're at. And so I am curious about how, again, how you develop, or how you, I guess, develop might be the right word, but develop that attitude over time, because when you get people here, they have to have been either they're just a fantastic athlete with tons of natural skills, in which case they've had lots of opportunity to go anywhere. But you have to develop that attitude about, hey, life's more than tennis, because for a lot of them, life has been tennis. A lot of it, or to try to just get here. So it's just really interesting to think about how you develop that over time with people who get here, maybe not thinking that exactly when they first get here.
And I think, Lipscomb's a special place, and I don't think any place is perfect. And I tell people that too, but I think it's special, and the investment of these athletes and what they're doing. And there is a bigger picture. I would say, of all the players that we've had in our program's history, Vika Zuba has been such a talent. She was able to do things that you just can't coach, that just came naturally, and had that ability to play pro, but she worked hard. She had several job offers, and, getting that job at UBS in finance and having her mom and sister here, that was awesome to see, that was her choice. So just, these 4 years, for 90% of players, wherever you go to school, these 4 years are really your pro years. And understanding that and really making the most of your time, and us as coaches investing in that other piece. And that's been the biggest passion that I've had is, okay, we're going to be a really good tennis program, the best that I can put together, and we're going to work really hard, but equally we're going to invest in these girls, and we're going to invest in helping them out academically, networking within Nashville, all of those things. So it's really neat to see girls when they come in as freshmen, that's what they're walking into. And the older ones in the past have really done a good job about letting that be known.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Now, Vika, just real quickly, because she was ASUN Player of the Year, and I will tell you, you could watch 6 matches going on, and just by the sound of the ball she hit, you could tell like that's a different player there. I mean, she could just pummel it, and she just hit a deeper, more consistent hard ball, and just kept putting it, back in the very corner. I mean, she was really a talent, and thankfully still around Nashville, and was great to have. So let's finish up a couple of thoughts on this, still on the recruiting here. So talk about trying to find them, but then again, assume that I know nothing about tennis. How do you actually evaluate their talent? Because I mean, certainly they could send you a YouTube video where they've spent 40 hours cultivating or calling out their 10 best shots to show you, but that doesn't tell you a whole lot. But explain for the person who doesn't understand, how do you actually evaluate how good a young woman in Poland is compared to a young woman in the Ukraine compared to a young woman in Nashville?
Well, the good thing about tennis is you have results. You have international rankings. Everybody has a number next to their name. Those numbers may vary depending on what region they're living in and how many of those international tournaments there are. That may vary from a financial situation where somebody cannot afford to travel and go to all these tournaments. So there's a lot of variables within that. But there's a range that we look at when we go recruiting. And so, results I have learned are results. You get them here, and hopefully you can develop them more, but really digging in on the results, really digging in on who they've played. The tennis world, even though it's global, it's this tiny little community in its own right. And so, there's people that we can call and ask, hey, have you seen this person play? Or I know that you've played them. What do you think? And so really digging into the results is one of the biggest things that I do, and one of the more tedious things that I do. And then you get your list of 100 girls that you're gonna I'd really be interested in these players, and then going from there in terms of what's going to be the good fit.
Yeah. So in other sports, I've had this conversation with different coaches. So I'll ask you a couple of questions. I ask every coach that's been on our podcast here. Is there anything about a player, and I'm not going to qualify it, I'll just say, is there anything about a player that, like, if you see that, you're like, nah, that's it. Like, we're not recruiting that person, or you hear it or whatever? Are there some things that are like automatic turnoffs? It could be their game, something in their game, could be something not in their game. That's all I'll say. Is there anything like that?
I think the biggest turnoff for me is watching a match and seeing somebody being a poor sport, banging a ball against the fence, dropping their racket, just not being what I would consider competitive. Those things to me would turn me off. Or if I hear that somebody, just they're not the nicest on the court, that would turn me off. But in terms of strokes or how they play, I'm pretty open on that end.
Okay. Well, that's what I was looking for. So, okay. So one more question about recruiting. There, as we've said already, there's a number of international players in the American college tennis game. There's a number of international people, students who play a lot of different sports, and
Mhm.
you see them in other sports too. But it seems like in tennis you tend to see more. Do you have any thoughts of why that is?
I think in Europe, you're either given a soccer ball or a tennis racket.
Okay.
It's much more prevalent in Europe, and there's a lot of development, in terms of federations, tennis federations. Um, so the the depth of our sport. If you're playing Division One tennis, I don't care where you're playing. You're a really good player. If you're playing Division One tennis, you're talking about you know top 700 junior rankings in the world.
Hmm.
You're a good player, and so it's a global sport, and there's a lot of really good Americans as well. To kind of give a range of Lipscomb. Ginny Bork a couple years ago was ranked 119 in the U.S. And she played 5 for us, and so that just gives you kind of the depth of this level that these kids come in and play, which is really impressive.
Yeah. Well, I think that's useful and interesting for people who don't know as much about the game to kind of get a sense of that. Okay. So I'm going to make you tennis commissioner for a day,
Uh,
meaning you can make any rule changes. You could whatever. I mean, you could do it in any direction. You can make any rule changes, any changes to the game, pro game or college game or whatever. But as tennis commissioner for a day, is there anything that you're just like, that has always bugged me, or I've always thought we ought to do this, or because of what we're doing now, I wish we'd go back to doing this? I'm giving you
mm,
time. I'm kind of stalling here to give you a little time to think.
mm,
So if
that's
you
a
can't think of it, we'll come back to it. But
that's a
tennis
big
commissioner
question.
for a day.
I've always doubles to me is so fun, and it's the biggest point to be in a match, in a really competitive match. You're going to win or lose 4-3, and so I thought it would be interesting sometimes to have singles go on first and then play doubles as the tiebreaker. I think that would talk about doubles has so much energy anyway. The amount of energy it would have if it was used for a tiebreaker, I can't imagine. And so from a fan perspective, I think that would be really neat.
That's interesting you say that because not to interject myself into it too much, but my son's high school team won the state tournament back when he was a junior in high school. And they played singles first and then they played doubles. They actually won it on a doubles match. There were
Mhm.
2 doubles matches going on at the same time, and they were both very close. And so, for people who don't know, for doubles, you have everybody play, but you just get a point for it. So
Mhm.
that's what you were saying about 4-3. And so,
Yeah.
whoever wins the majority of the doubles matches essentially gets the point.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, the tension was unbelievable because you had a
I
couple of
bet.
matches going on at one time, and it's just like if anybody could win it, it's over.
Yeah.
And so as soon as the one team won, the other match just stopped, and that was it. Everybody's jumping up and down, and it was celebrating. So that's a great idea. I'm going to push for that in the ASUN meetings. We're going to try that. See if I've seen
Just one
some
match.
I've seen some conferences now. I mean, ASUN's not one of them, but I've
Mhm.
seen some conferences experiment with just letting fans go nuts during the match, like
Mhm.
literally as they're playing, which is not really typical protocol. Have
Uh-huh.
you watched that? You have any thoughts on that?
I think it's the loudness in certain facilities is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Making fun of somebody or poking at somebody, I don't think is good. But having that atmosphere in our sport, it's not that quiet
Uh-huh.
golf clap sport anymore.
Right.
But I think it makes for a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's taunting and it goes excessive, like I said, I'm not for it. But we've been at indoor matches before, and you're cheering for court 2 while court 3's playing a point. So we kind of already
Yeah. That's
do
right.
it.
Yeah.
So
That's right. That goes on already. So I'd invite anybody who's never watched. I mean, we play. I contend that Lipscomb University tennis on a spring afternoon has the best place to watch tennis in all of Nashville because you're up on top of a parking deck. Believe it or not, there's 6 courts up there, but it's got a fence all the way around it, and the sun's going down behind you in the west, so you can sit on that side. You're not looking into the sun. There's always a breeze up there. It's a nice breeze. It's super pleasant to be up there. And so, but then there's indoor matches too, which early in the season you have more indoor matches because of weather and what have you. And that's a lot of fun too. As you said, the noise level gets to be a little more intense in there. So it's really cool. So here we are. We're taping this, as I said, and little bit into June. We're not far away from Wimbledon, and there's no Wimbledon this year. Does that, just as a tennis person, how does that make you feel?
It's crazy, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
I was able to go to the U.S. Open for the first time last year, and just to think of how quickly things have changed in a year. But yeah, when you're not watching, you know, the French Open in the background or Wimbledon in the background soon, it's a little strange, you know,
Yeah.
and that's something that the girls, you know, would text back and forth on, you know. So it's a little odd.
Yeah, the U.S. Open, I've been fortunate enough to go to that as well, and just a fantastic event. You take the 7 train, I think it is, out there, and then you end up at, you've got the U.S. Open on the right, and you got where the Mets play right on your left. You're just, they're both right there. And if you buy a ticket, here's a hint: if you're going to the U.S. Open, buy a ticket to Arthur Ashe Stadium, because then you can get into all the other venues with that ticket for like general admission. But it doesn't work the other way. You can't buy it for, I guess it's what, Louis Armstrong Stadium or something,
Right.
and get into Arthur Ashe. So if you're listening and you want to go to the U.S. Open, that's the way to do it. So it's great. Now, have you ever been to, speaking of the U.S. Open, have you ever been to Cincinnati? Much closer, and a lot of people say that that's a good alternative if you'd like to go to the U.S. Open but can't swing it for whatever reason. That's kind of the warm up, but they say it's a great event. I've never been. Have you done that?
Oh yeah, it's an awesome event because you can get so close to the players.
Okay.
But it's just hot. It is.
Okay.
It's warm when you go, but it's to be able to be that close to, you know, some of the greats in our game is pretty neat. Where you don't, you know, doing that at the U.S. Open is a little bit more challenging.
Women or men, do you have either one? Do you have a favorite tennis player or two that you like to watch them for whatever reason?
You know, all time it's Pete Sampras. I loved
Okay.
watching Sampras. The way the men play, when you watch women, they just do things a little bit better than maybe our girls here and there. But when I watched Djokovic play this past year, you know, just from an athletic standpoint, what just a freak of nature some of these guys are to be able to do what they do. Seeing a ball moving that fast, that was something. But
Well, so I'm going to ask you a few more just kind of personal questions, and we try to, go about I always say 45 minutes because that's a good time, a length of time to exercise, and then we'll give you time to cool down. So if you're listening to this while you're, walking or jogging or whatever, or lifting weights, we've hopefully gotten you through one of your workouts, and so I'll give you just a few minutes more here. But are there any people from a coaching perspective they could be coaches in tennis, they could be coaches in other sports, they could be other people. I mean, it doesn't have to be sports. Are there people that you have learned from, you feel like have really helped you just kind of informing how you think about being a coach in terms of philosophy or approach or things like that?
I've been really fortunate to have a lot of close coaching friends. A lot of us, we grew up in juniors together and of each other. And so it's been so nice to be able to, the Gulf Coast coach is one of my really good friends, and, we'll bounce ideas off of each other, but just to kind of bounce something off of somebody else has been really great. And then there's some people that are older than I am, that are now retired, where hearing their stories and some of the things that they dealt with, in terms of adversity in their careers or within a team dynamic, it's been really helpful to hear how they handled a certain situation or what they did in that moment. So tennis is really supportive. It's super competitive, but it's a small world, and everybody kind of knows of everybody. But I've been really fortunate to have some great friends on the coaching end.
That's great. Now, are you more of a reader or a watcher or a listener? I mean, how do you kind of take in things in general? Are you more of a one of those three: read, watch, listen, or any of those?
I'm a visual person, so I like to read. I like to listen to other people's stories. I find it really neat. So these other coaches, they have these different teams and different things going on, but it might help you in the future. And so I like to listen. I'm a big visual person. I would say less of a talker.
Okay, so Jamie, we're in the no judgment zone here for just a second, and we've been into kind of quarantining or distancing or whatever for quite a while now. You may have had some time to watch some things on YouTube or Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever. So it's the no judgment zone. Is there anything that you just kind of like, hey man, I really enjoyed this, or I got into this, or is that really not your thing?
Not in quarantine. We finished watching Homeland. The last season came out of Homeland. But I like period pieces. I like The Crown. I've liked Downton. I've liked, and I'm caught up on all of those, Victoria and all that. But not a huge TV watcher.
Okay, all right. Downton Abbey was good. I watched that. Haven't seen Homeland. So
have you seen The Crown?
In general, thumbs up or thumbs down for Homeland?
It was okay. Not as good as the other seasons, but okay.
Yeah. All right. Our family's into British Baking Network or British Baking Show right now, actually, which is just kind of a competition, but it's really good. It's like competition, but they're kind of a little nicer, and you don't have kind of the extreme head cases. I think they weed those out before this show. So we've really enjoyed that. So so you're a Nashville native for people that don't know. So got a lot of people coming to Nashville still, one of the most popular destinations in all of America. And so we're going to ask you to play a little bit of Nashville guide here. And maybe this is something you would tell our recruits as well, sometimes if they're asking you. So any particular places like favorite breakfast spots or favorite dinner places? What are a couple of your favorites if I'm coming to Nashville for a weekend and want to go somewhere? Any recommendations?
I really like Mexican. So I frequent Taquero, and I've seen you there a couple times as well.
Right, yeah.
So I go there like 2 to 3 times a week. So I like that. 12 South has a lot of great restaurants. We do the Green Hills Grill quite a bit just because I live close. So we'll do takeout there some. What else?
You're going to go
so many good places.
Nashville. Do you have Nashville? Is that your breakfast place? Is Nashville? Okay. Well, that's close too. So I have had plenty of meeting there. And you can also have a celebrity sighting there sometimes if you go for a little bit later breakfast. I won't tell you who, but there's a couple of regular celebrity, music types that will be there too. Pretty often enough that your chances are fair of seeing one. What about coffee? Are you a coffee person or not a coffee person?
I drink way too much coffee.
Okay, so do you have a coffee stop, coffee spot, place you like to hang out, or?
I like the Perch. Okay. Sometimes when I want to get off campus just for a little bit, I'll go to the Perch and take my laptop and get some coffee. Yeah. And Starbucks.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we got one on campus too. It's actually the busiest Starbucks in this whole area.
Is it really?
Little known trivia fact, but it's the busiest Starbucks within the region or whatever. So it's on campus. So what about if you were going to be listening to this podcast on Spotify and you're going to go take a walk for an hour 15, hour and a half, something, you're going to go hike or walk or do whatever. Is there any place that you would say, hey, you ought to go do that, go to this place if you want to do that? Any spots?
I like to go to Percy Warner just because I find it peaceful. If I'm doing a quick walk, I'll walk down Beaumont and back. Yeah. But I like to do the stairs at Percy Warner and go to that park.
They're working on the stairs right now. They
They
should
are.
be done here shortly. Yeah, they're actually doing that, but there's still plenty of places to hike. I just hiked the
Otter
other.
Creek's great. We go there a lot.
Yeah. So lots of options. Okay, so maybe last question here that has to do with personally. So uh, I remember at one point I was in college here in Nashville. I grew up in the Nashville area, and I had never been to the Grand Ole Opry. And people were like, I
Mm.
can't believe you've lived in Nashville all this time and never been to the Grand Ole Opry. So is there anything that that you would, at this point people would say like, I can't believe you lived in Nashville and you still haven't gone to this place or done this thing or eaten at this place or watched this
Mm.
or anything like that? Any like gaping holes in your Nashville experience? Hey, there's Matt, by the way.
Yeah,
Tell
there's
Matt
Matt.
hello. Hey, that's
Oh,
okay. It's a family show.
yeah, we have a cat that got out in the
Oh,
backyard.
sorry about that.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. The Nashville Zoo. I didn't go to the zoo until last year, and everybody was like,
Okay.
"You've never gone to the zoo."
Yeah. Okay,
Um,
that counts. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
to
That's
the
a
zoo.
that's a fantastic, by the way, that's a fantastic place to go if you're
Oh,
visiting.
it's
I hadn't thought
awesome.
about that one, but well, look, we're so glad that you took the time to do this, and we can't wait to get back into actually having sports on Lipscomb's campus. But hopefully, this has been a good way for people to get to know you a little bit better, get to know our program, what our program's about, kind of the philosophy and that sort of thing. And I want to encourage people who want to know more about our team. Again, they can find out about our women's tennis team on lipscombsports.com. That's our website. There's links. You can read as much and learn as much as you possibly could want to about the team. On social media, on Twitter, it's at LipscombWTennis. So if you want to follow the team on Twitter, at LipscombWTennis. On Instagram, it's at Lipscomb with an underscore and then W Tennis. So again, you can just kind of search and look up Lipscomb Tennis. It'll get you to it. But that's us on that. And then even on Facebook, if people still use Facebook, some people do, and I do still sometimes. So you can follow us on Lipscomb Tennis as well there too. So there's lots of ways to do that. Again, if you've enjoyed the show and want to share it, please do so. You can always listen to it on Spotify or YouTube. We try to have a new one every week. We missed a week here last week, I guess, or the week before. I can't recall. But anyways, hopefully that won't happen again. But we did. That was on me. I had some scheduling things going on. The cat is safe. Thank goodness. Matt is the hero there. So anyways, we'll continue on with the rest of our coaches and the rest of our programs. If you want to go back in the archives, you can find who we've talked to already. And as I said, we've got about another month to go with the rest of our coaches. But it's been great having you, Jamie, and we hope that all of our players get back to us safely and quickly. And we'll look forward to another fantastic season. And thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you. This was fun.
All right.